EVA's AccuraSeries, Bagara barrels for guaranteed accuracy, nitride for guaranteed rust proofing, and a rifle guaranteed to be the best muzzleloader you've ever shot. CVA, it's just a better gun.
All right, it's time for this week's Pictures of the Week. They're being brought to you by Flowers Garden Center and Deer Processing. Get down there to 4550 Eatons Creek Road and let them take care of all your processing needs. I love the snack sticks and the bologna. This year I tried that Cajun sausage, and man, it's some of the best I've ever eaten. So get down there and be sure to tell Flowers thank you for everything they do for us here at the show. All right, our first picture here, this is Miss Paula Smith, and y'all know her as the Catfish Queen, but she knows how to deer hunt too, so she's got another nice buck this year. Congratulations on that one, Paula. All right, this picture here, this is the one I was telling you about earlier, Wes. This is Andy Mcgill. Andy's an old friend of mine. We actually went to college together, and we've both been into deer hunting, obviously, our whole lives. But this year, man, he got a really, really nice buck there.
Well, that's a great one.
So congratulations on that one, Andy. And then here on the end, this is our buddy Drew Spickard. And Drew actually got this buck right at the end of bow season. It may have been right at the beginning of muzzleloader season, but he got it with a crossbow. And fantastic deer. At the time, it was his best buck ever, until about 2 weeks later when he killed his best buck ever again.
Yeah,
so Drew
I saw that.
has had a wonderful
He's had
season.
a good one.
And we'll be sharing that other buck with y'all, I'm sure, here in just the next few weeks. Y'all can send your pictures to us here at 474 James Robertson Parkway, or get them to me on Facebook or on the email there on the screen, and we'll share them here on the show just as soon as we can. All right, guys, welcome back to the studio. Well, we've been along on a hunt in Middle Tennessee that I got into these bucks, Wes, and I was calling you just about every day. I was like, man, I seen 5 bucks today, seen 6 bucks today, but for whatever reason, it seemed like right there at about the 9th of November, a switch just went off. I mean, it was, the bucks were kind of cruising pretty hard up until that, and we had seen some deer and seen some movement going on. But right there at the 9th, it just seemed like everything went crazy. And then, as you can tell, you know, the 10th and 11th, you know, they were pretty hot. But then on the 12th, it was like Katie bar the door there.
Right.
And the next couple of days for the November the 12th and the 13th both, it was just one deer after another deer after another deer, and mainly younger bucks, you know, a few good bucks, and they just kept playing with my emotions. I can't call it. And you know, the way I'm set up, you know, in this first segment there that we already watched, the way I'm set up there, I am in a elevated little shooting house there that we built years ago, and had a guy ask me that long. He said, "Y'all using redneck blinds?" I said, "Yeah, we use them real redneck blinds." You know, and he just laughed. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's about 250 yards across this field from a blind that is a ground blind that we keep set there that I use for bow hunting. And for 3 days, I just kept watching these bucks. They'd come out of the milo down there. We left them standing milo. I want to mention that too, because I've told Wes several times now that milo turned out to be, that was a surprise food plot to us. We had actually planted it for doves earlier in the season. Yeah. And we had cut a lot of it and left some standing, and you know, before we knew it, it was full of deer every day. But these deer were coming out of the milo, cutting across the field, and going right past that bow blind, 250 yards from me. So I'm just sitting there with a muzzleloader, you know, for days, just salivating. Now, the deer that I actually missed, yes, we do show what really happens around here, but the deer that I missed, that was actually on opening day. I should back up and mention that. I missed him on opening day. Right. Had my little boy with me. He loves to get out and hunt with me, and he was out there with me that day. And I knew that deer had some distance on him, don't get me wrong, but I'm comfortable with that muzzleloader at 200 yards. I've shot it out that far, and I was ranging these deer. They were running around, everything was going crazy, and trying to keep my little boy calm. But best I can figure, I think I was hitting some high grass that was across that knoll right there, and it was telling me it was 176 yards. And when I actually got out to where that buck was later on, it was a 240 in the high 240s. I was basically off by
which is
over
a big
50
difference
yards.
for a
and with a
muzzleloader.
muzzleloader, when you're relying on that BDC, so I actually didn't even get close to that deer when I shot him, to be honest. He didn't even know he was shot at. He just walked around, went right back to chasing does, you know.
Right.
And so that kind of kicked it off. But then I decided, though, after watching them keep crossing that field and going by that blind, that I'd had enough of it. And I talked to Jack and I said, man, you know, because normally we're like you, we're very careful about moving in to the, you know, kind of the center of things. And those bucks were bedding up on one side of this big field, and they were basically doing all their chasing and everything on the other side where these does had been feeding. And I was basically just fixing to slip right down in the middle of them, and get down in there with them. And I told him, it's, you know, it's probably going to be a one-day deal. Either it's going to happen or it didn't. And Jack set up in another bow blind kind of down in the middle with me around the corner, and it just so happened, you know, it worked out that day where I was in the right place. But on the 12th, and I want to talk about this a little bit too before we get into the video next segment, but because I couldn't get this videoed, right at dark on the 12th, these little bucks had been out there chasing around, and a young doe came out in the field right at dark. It was so dark she just kind of was like a silhouette. I was already putting things away, and looked up and saw that deer coming out in the field, and watched her for just a second, and then went right back to put my stuff away. And just as I put my binoculars and things in, I looked back up and I realized there was a lot bigger deer coming up behind her. And just in the binoculars, I could tell just well enough to see that it was that big frame 7-pointer, or at least I knew a tall frame deer. I assumed it was him. And they come out in the field, and just before dark, I saw him lay down, and he laid down in that field, probably 50 yards in front of that bow blind. And of course, I didn't expect that, you know, he'd be in the same spot the next morning or anything, but I figured they wouldn't end up going far. And they didn't. You know, they ended up not going that far before we did that. But sometimes making a move like that can be nerve-wracking.
Too, where you were patient about things, and you know, I think we talked like the night before. You was talking about going and moving in on that blind, and the conditions was right, and the wind was right, and so, you know, it was time, you know, and of course you'd been seeing them there for a few days, but, you know, you were patient about it, and, you know, ultimately led to you making the kill, you know.
It usually ends up paying off, you know, not every time, but I also knew if I pushed it too far, then I might have ended up in trouble. So, well, guys, we're going to go over right now and do this week's product of the week. This week's product of the week has been sponsored by Caney Fork Outdoors. You guys can find them at cfoutdoors.com, or you can get off I-40 at the Center Hill Dam exit there. Go to the bottom of the hill and make a right. They're going to be at the Big Right Market. They take care of all of your river fishing needs, kayak needs, and get you out there on the beautiful Caney Fork River. And be sure to tell the Martin family thank you for all they do for us here at the show. All right, guys, I've been promising some more of these things from Chris Snow over at Snow Spin Baits. Now, he has been putting out several new things this fall, and we've been trying to share some of them with y'all over the last few shows here. But this again, is from Snow Spin Baits. This is the new Freestyle Jig Heads. Now, he's starting to put out, got a new mushroom head, too, we're going to be showing here before too long. But this is the Freestyle. Of course, this is in the white color, 1/4 ounce. This has got a 4/0 hook in it. And these things are absolutely great for any of your finesse fishing. You know, any smallmouth is what I think of when I think of these, Wes. I mean, they're going to catch just about any kind of bass. I have used these to catch sauger and walleye on the right kind of jigs. But nonetheless, you can check these out at snowspinbaits.com. Again, that's from Snow Spin Baits. My buddy Chris Snow up there on Center Hill. We appreciate those, Chris. Y'all check those out. We're going to get ready to take another quick break, and we'll be right back here in just a minute with some more Southern Woods and Waters.